Greetings, fellow conquerors. This is darkfireslide, and welcome to Know Your Income, a short video in which I will explain how each income type works, how you can use it to your advantage, and the general strategies for each of those. Hopefully this is going to be under 5 minutes. Without further ado, let's begin. The first type of income, of course, is tax income, and tax is the easiest to do the math for, and since it's so easy, I'm actually going to show you the formula for it. Basically, for each point of development that you have in a province for administrative, you will make 1 ducat a year. So a 4 development province with your culture and with no autonomy will produce 4 ducats a year without any other modifiers. So pretty straightforward on that. There will of course be tons of other modifiers. Tech. Well, actually, that's the interesting thing. Tech does not actually affect tax income. Things like economic and national ideas will, and things like buildings, such as obviously the famous church and cathedral buildings as well. So those are just the basics of tax income. The thing about tax income is it's the strongest in the early game because it has the highest base value to start with. However, as time passes, production and trade income will become more powerful because their respective technologies, administrative for production and diplomatic for trade, will increase their effective value. And so the general strategy is in the early game, tax modifier bonuses are going to give you more of an advantage than production and trade efficiency. Now, getting any kind of bonus, especially when you're in a country such as England or many other countries in Europe that have good trade goods, which, by the way, if you don't know if this exists, there is a trade goods map mode under economic map modes, which will show you the trade goods of given provinces across Europe. And this is very important because certain trade goods, such as, I believe this is silks, this is cloth. So cloth is typically very expensive, and iron typically has a very good price as well as bronze, and of course gold where it exists, such as here in Castile and La Mancha. So without further ado, let's head into production income. So production income is going to be the second and, in my opinion, the most powerful type of income in the late game. Some people would protest that it's trade, other people would protest that it's production, and I'm one of the people who would protest that it's production. And the reason that it gets so high is, for starters, the value of many things such as cloths raise in value, and irons raise in value over time. And so in the late game, the more production efficiency modifiers you can stack, all the better, because you get them naturally over time with tech. And this is very important. I believe it adds up to a total, let's see, that's like it's like a total of like a plus 60-ish%, maybe it's plus 50. I'm not counting all those 5% in time here. It's a lot of bonuses, and essentially, if you can picture this production income going up by 50% by the end game, that's a general idea of how much it's going to go up by. And when you add that furthermore to buildings such as workshops and counting houses, these bonuses get even more massive and powerful. And so by the late game, the majority of your income should be coming from production, otherwise you'll be at an economic disadvantage compared to your peers, especially if they bother to build workshops and counting houses in the appropriate places. Furthermore, manufactories will increase the amount of goods produced in a province. Now, how is production income actually calculated? So down here we have all this trade power stuff, and more or less it's going to be the trade value, and the trade value is based on the goods produced modifier, which is mainly based on I don't know if provinces have just like a natural amount of goods. Actually no, it's based on the economic development of a province, combined with it's 0.2 goods produced per development in a province. And so, with that in mind, it can be, so this is 4 development, this is 0.8. So this is pretty easy to figure out, and then you add that alongside the trade value of the actual good in question to get your bonus. And of course, both these income types and trade as well are all affected by local autonomy. So this is all assuming that you have 0% autonomy in the provinces in question. So anyway, yes, production is not so great in the early game. It is fantastic in the late game, especially when you start building manufactories in your provinces and really start building tall. And the more production development that you have, the more it's going to help you. Now, the last thing to talk about is also the most complex, and that's trade income. Now, trade can be very convoluted, but more or less what you need to know is you want to have the most power in your node. Now, Typically speaking, just a general strategy, very quickly, you never want to collect outside of your home node if you have a good home node. So for example, as England here, you never want to collect outside of England, because you want to transfer everything else to England, because you already have a ton of trade power in the English Channel trade node, which means that any power you transfer upward is going to be made into money, since you already automatically collect from this node anyway. And the other part of it is that when you only collect in your home node, you actually get a bonus as long as you're not collecting anywhere else, and it's a pretty substantial bonus. I forget the exact number, but when you collect elsewhere, you forfeit that very nice bonus. And I think it might actually be here on this chart here, maybe. Okay, it's not. It's in the wiki if you look up trade income. Trust me, I'm not insane. So anyway, how does trade income work? Well, basically, it's based on a similar thing to the production, except rather than just collecting from the amount of actual goods produced, it's actually adding the trade value here to the actual node. And so the more of the node that you control, the more you actually control this trade value, which is based on the production goods. Which means that if you build manufactories, not only is your production income going to go up, your trade income, as long as you control the node, is going to go up as well. Now, the local production efficiency from workshops and counting houses are not going to affect this. However, manufactories most certainly are. And so, for example, at the start of the game, Muscovy is not exactly very good in terms of production. However, as they begin to expand west, they get access to things such as furs, copper, and there's a lot of iron in Siberia as well. And this is very important because Muscovy doesn't have very good trade options until they start building manufactories out in the frozen wastes, basically, and develop those provinces. And in which case, then the nodes out there definitely have a very good trade value because they have so many valuable goods. Because the thing is, I remember iron specifically. I don't remember the date, but at one point, iron goes from a 3 value to a 4.5 value, if I recall correctly, which means that the trade value for iron just skyrockets in the late game, making it a very, very powerful thing to have indeed, worth more than a lot of other goods. In fact, worth maybe the most out of any type of good in the game even. I may be being a little hyperbolic there, but anyway. So those are the important things you need to know. And of course, trade income goes up with tech just the same way the production income does. So while at first your income may not be entirely based off trade, although England's income definitely is, that income only goes up in time, and taking things like trade ideas can also help expedite the process. As a final note, just want to clarify once again, in the early game, tax income is going to be your best bet, especially for landlocked countries without access to good trade nodes, while production is going to be the dominant late game income, even surpassing trade if you are in a certain area where trade especially is not very good, or just in general because production can be so powerful in the late game because of all the stacked production efficiency modifiers that you get both from technology, from buildings, and from your manufactories. And of course, building those manufactories is also going to improve your trade value, which means that even if it doesn't seem like the building is going to pay it off, you can't exactly calculate how much of a trade bonus you're going to get from building those manufactories as well. Now, I've gone almost 4 minutes over, and I wanted to apologize for that, but I hope that that was a brief, helpful guide on how the 3 income types work, and a decent strategy to look for in general when you're playing and looking for those. Obviously, things are going to depend on where you are in the world, and typically speaking, naval countries like England are going to focus more on trade, while landlocked countries are going to focus more on production, just because inland trade nodes are not nearly as good as ones on the sea. That being said, I hope you found this guide useful, and I'll see you on the next one.